we have details of all the bilateral meetings that the Prime Minister will be holding with world leaders over the next 3 days, beginning with today, when he will have the bilaterals with his counterparts from Mauritius, Bangladesh and US at 7 LKM tomorrow, that is 9th of September. In addition to the G20 meetings, Prime Minister will have a series of bilaterals, and on 10th as well, there will be a working lunch meeting with President Macron of France. He will have pull-aside meetings with Canada, bilateral meetings with Turkey, UAE, South Korea, Brazil and Nigeria. But first, on this broadcast, we have some details that have come in from the World Bank, for which I'm going straight to Vasudha, who's joining me live, and joining her is also Parma. But Vasudha, coming to you, the DPI has had a transformative impact on India, and that's what the World Bank is saying, that in its financial inclusion document, how this has been a groundbreaking measure taken by the Modi government. Could you give us more details, please?
So Maria, like we know, India's DPI and UPI have become, the biggest highlights of India's G20 presidency. They are the country's biggest export sales. And, what we hear is India is also looking at building a multilateral organization of sorts on the lines of the Solar Alliance to sort of streamline the use of DPI and UPI, specifically in developing countries. And at this time, this, endorsement by World Bank comes at a very right time to boost India's efforts. The World Bank report goes on to say that, beyond financial inclusion, the impact of India's DPI and UPI has also had a transformative impact on the lives of people in India. Remember, Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has been talking about a post-pandemic world. And in that context, the World Bank report also says that the lives of women, especially in low-income countries, have the potential to change because of the, use of UPI and digital public infrastructure, and the way India has emerged as a leader of sorts when it comes to digital governance is sort of, transformative. And it actually says that, the kind of progress that India has made with regard to digital payments is something that any country would have done in 50 years, and India has achieved that in 6 years. Also, very clearly, because we have just passed the Data Protection Act, it also talks about account aggregators and the need for policies, regulation, and something like an Aadhaar and an India stack to also boost UPIs, without which that won't be possible. So this comes at a good time, because UPI and DPI both will be important aspects of India's outcomes.
I think what you said becomes important, Vasudha, because the World Bank document actually says that India has achieved in just 6 years what would have been would have taken us 5 decades for other countries. And the document categorically notes that while DPI's role in this leapfrogging is undoubtable, other ecosystem variables and policies that build on the availability of DPIs were critical. Vasudha, before I bring in Parma, I want to understand also one more aspect from you. One of the achievements of India's G20 presidency has been that focus that has come on this digital public infrastructure. And as Mr. Pardesi, who is the Special Secretary and someone who is in charge of the logistics, was talking about, that there will be some kind of special experience protocol at Bharat Mandapam for the VVIPs. What do we know about that?
Yes, what we understand is India is all set to actually give an experience, a real-time experience of the way it uses UPI payments and also DPI to the foreign delegates, So we already know that, all their financial accounts, the wallets will be credited with rupees 10,000. Apart from that, they could, be using UPIs to buy handicrafts, which is all being arranged for them, and also their spouses can use it. But most important thing is also the India stack, because apart from UPI and DPI, we have other, flagship apps of the Digital India program, be it the Bhashini app, which basically has the digital app translated in 16 foreign languages. So this is going to make the navigation process easier for the foreign delegates. That is one thing. Of course, digital locker and COVID, the biggest success of India's, COVID, crisis, where we actually managed the vaccination of so many people. That is also going to be showcased, and it also aligns with India's push to help developing countries, because both in health and IT ministerial meetings, this push for tech transfer is something that India has been really pushing for.
Yes, and something that the template of which will be shared with other countries. A number of these countries have asked for that template, and there'll be some kind of timeline that will be set. Perhaps 2024-26 is what we are being told as those who have finally agreed upon as 10 deliverables in the finance track. Parma, come in on this. Vasudha, I'm going to come back to you a little more on what to expect vis-a-vis the Voice of Global South, and when is that announcement going to happen with regards to African Union. But Parma, the series of bilaterals, 15 in all, India is the host country, and India did receive requests for having bilaterals by just about every country. 3 lined up for today, but of course this is for invitee nations like Bangladesh and Mauritius as well.
Right, Mario, you're absolutely right. New Delhi's diplomatic role continues. Over today, as in the 8th of September, we're going to have bilaterals, as in India has bilaterals with Mauritius, with the US, as in Joe Biden, at 7 LKM, the Prime Minister's residence, as well as Bangladesh. Now, tomorrow, when the G20 Leaders Summit begins, early in the morning, as we'll be out on the field, it's also a big day for the Prime Minister, but he's going to have bilaterals with Japan, with the UK, with Italy and Germany tomorrow, on the 9th of September. On the 10th, after the Leaders Summit, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, is expected to hold bilateral talks with our Prime Minister. So all in all, a very busy 72 hours ahead of us. We'll keep tracking all the latest developments for you. Currently, we're at the JLN Stadium, waiting to make our way to Bharat Mandapam. Yes,
we will be entering Bharat Mandapam as a channel very shortly. Vasudha, when is that announcement happening for African Union? It's a big push. We saw what happened in the month of January when India became the voice of the voiceless, the voice of 125 countries which form the global south.
Yes.
So African Union announcement.
The push for African Union by...
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Prime Minister Modi's push for the African Union is one of the biggest, it's going to be one of the biggest potential takeaways of India's presidency, G20 presidency. And I'm told that many of the bilateral meetings will also focus on sort of getting this consensus ready. But, both US and Russia and, we also saw Australia come out and speak in support of AU's inclusion to this. 55 countries part of this AU bloc. And, this would be basically India's, this will be to India's credit if this happens, and that will be a big thing because India has been speaking about the interest of developing countries. And in January, India also held this virtual summit on Voice of the Global South, where 125 countries, many of them from Africa, actually participated with great enthusiasm. And India has been talking not just about that, but also even in the finance track meeting, the need India has been emphasizing on the need to restructure loans, and also this reforms that India has pushed when it comes to multilateral developmental banks like World Banks, when they give out loans to developing countries. That is also, that also keeps Africa in focus. And of course, there are geopolitical reasons for it. But at the primary basis of it is the Prime Minister's push for action-oriented and inclusive G20 presidency of India.